Hello, and welcome to the OASIS Open Cybersecurity Alliance webinar. Thank you for joining us today. This webinar will be recorded and the link will be available after the event. We encourage you to submit your questions during the presentation. We will take as many as possible in the end, and if they're not answered, we will follow up and answer your questions after the recording. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Anshul Garg. He's a product marketing manager from IBM Security. Thanks, Anshul.
Thank you, Dee, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all the folks who've dialed in, depending on where you are. We are very excited to kick off this webinar and provide an update on what's been happening with OCA, Open Cybersecurity Alliance, so the key initiatives that are underway, and we are about to celebrate our one-year anniversary, so we are very excited about the progress that we've made in less than a year, our forward-looking plans, and then how you can get engaged and the community support that we're looking forward to. So we've got a very exciting set of panelists today. I'm joined by Charles Schmidt from MITRE, Darren Thomas from McAfee, Forrest Haar from SAIC, Jason Kierstead from IBM Security, and Todd Mosley from CyberArk. So we've got a great panelist of speakers today, and we want to cover the topics that we just talked about and pick the perspective of these industry leaders. So just to see the stage and set the stage, what's going on in the state of security today, right? You know, if we talk to clients, most of our clients are concerned about security complexity, to the point that for most, security complexity is the #1 challenge that they're facing today, according to some recent reports. The reason for this complexity is the dozens of tools that they have in the ecosystem from multiple vendors. Now, these tools do not obviously talk to each other. They were designed to solve a particular point problem, which they obviously solve, but do not share any telemetry data or any other data points with the other tools, because of which this is the client has to act as a system integrator and then essentially stitch all the tools together, which is a resource intensive, time consuming work, and it is also very expensive. Some of the other challenges of this approach is that it's impossible to break down these data silos and extract full values of tools. So there might be some information or some insights that are spread across each of these individual tools, but at a collective level, it's very difficult to glean insights across your entire security infrastructure. Again, talking about the integration capabilities, the client has to do most of the work in facilitating the communication between these tools, making them work together. And then interoperability is a key challenge, which the scarcely populated security skills are addressing, rather than working on the actual security problems. So Jason, I know we set out with Open Cybersecurity Alliance almost a year ago, or less than a year ago, frankly, to address some of these challenges. For folks who've not heard about Open Cybersecurity Alliance, can you give a quick introduction of what this is and the progress that we've been making in the last year or so?
Sure, thanks, Anshul. The Open Cybersecurity Alliance was founded about a year ago as a community of vendors, end users, and thought leaders who were trying to tackle some of the problems that we just discussed around complexity of the ecosystem, lack of interoperability between tools, and ability to share insights and gain additional value from the tool chain that they already have. And the way the organization is structured is that the members of this community come together and collaborate around common open source projects and tooling, using mutually agreed upon technologies and utilizing and enhancing existing standards wherever available. And the end goal of all that is to make integration easier for clients, and also to make building integrations easier for vendors, to over time, reduce the amount of effort that it takes to integrate the products in the overall cybersecurity ecosystem. The goals of the Alliance are basically aligned along those pillars, to build this open source tooling, patterns, and code as I mentioned, utilizing existing standards wherever possible. So it's not necessarily the goal of the OCA to go out and create new standards where they already exist. We're really trying to leverage the existing work and hard work that's gone on in cybersecurity wherever possible, and really just trying to make it work better by collaborating on those open source projects and tooling to make it simpler to integrate these products. And this is all to facilitate a variety of different security use cases around operations, threat hunting, detection, SOAR, you name it, really. There's kind of a broad mandate for the OCA, and it's really focused on enabling this interoperability and seamless exchange of information across cybersecurity.
That's awesome, JK. Thank you for giving us a run through of what Open Cybersecurity Alliance is and some of the goals. Can you quickly talk about, like I mentioned, this is the 1-year anniversary for Open Cybersecurity Alliance. Can you talk through some of the things that you've been doing along with the extended team in the last year or so?
Sure, Anshul. There's been a lot of progress in the past year in the OCA. On the two main projects that we launched with, as folks may recall, are the Stick Shifter project and the OpenDXL Ontology project. The Stick Shifter project, in particular, we've grown to have over 27 different contributors. We have 84 different forks of the project. For anyone who's familiar with GitHub parlance, that basically means there's 84 different organizations who are consuming that code in various different ways. There's now 17 different connectors developed for Stick Shifter, which is a dramatic improvement. I believe we've added 10 different modules in the past year, because when the project first launched, I believe we only had 6 or 7 different modules. So there's been a large amount of progress in that project. The OpenDXL Ontology project, we've created a number of independent work streams to accelerate the alignment around that project. And what we've done, I'll go into this in a little bit more detail in a moment, but essentially we've attempted to align the members of the OCA into these work streams to accelerate the development of that project. And then finally, we have this exciting new project, which we're announcing today, the SCAP data collection architecture prototype. And we're going to talk about that a lot more later in this webinar. So I'm very excited to discuss that project in detail. Essentially, it's a new project coming over from the MITRE group, sponsored by NIST, to create a reference implementation for the SCAP v2 standard, which NIST provides. Just a brief update on some of those projects and what they are for anyone who hasn't been following the OCA. The Stick Shifter project is a universal data access layer that allows you to do essentially bi-directional communication with a cybersecurity product, normalizing its data model to and from the STIX2 ontology. So you essentially give it a STIX2 pattern in, and then the Stick Shifter project will translate that to the native APIs and data ontology of the other cybersecurity product. And when the data comes out the other side, Stick Shifter will then translate it back to the STIX2 cyber observable ontology. So what that lets an integrator do is build applications independent of the native APIs and languages of all of the different cybersecurity products that exist. And you get that this ability to essentially communicate with multiple different products with one single code base, instead of having to have different code bases for all the different products. The second project that we launched with last year is the OpenDXL Ontology project, and that is a project to essentially improve the OpenDXL ecosystem by creating a uniform ontology for the messages that are exchanged over the fabric. And to have those messages aligned to common categories and types for the different types, classes of cybersecurity products and the information that they want to interchange. So if you're a threat intelligence platform and you're trying to share insights about a piece of threat intelligence, that those messages will look the same regardless of which threat intelligence platform you're broadcasting them from, so the consumers only have to write one set of integrations on OpenDXL to consume that information. Finally, the ability to have that sample code on top of those. As I mentioned, as part of that OpenDXL ontology project, we've created a series of work streams, and those work streams are aligned to various sections of the cybersecurity marketplace and landscape, and we've attempted to map the various sponsors and participants in the OCA into these work streams. And the goal of these is to essentially allow those subject matter experts to collaborate on what type of messages they want to exchange over that fabric, how they want to communicate those insights, how they see those insights being consumed by their downstream products, and with essentially those work streams then being reported back to the overall OCA over time. So with that, we actually have a couple of subject matter experts in the webinar here who are going to go into details of some of the work streams. So I'll hand it off to Forrest, who's going to talk about the systems integration work stream effort. Forrest?
Good morning. Thanks, Jason. I'm Forrest Hare. Welcome, everyone. I'm a solution architect at SAIC, as Jason mentioned, a large systems integrator, and I've been with SAIC for about 2 years. Before that, I just retired from the Air Force, where I contributed to the DoD and national security policy for cyberspace and many capacities in the Air Force. And I'm excited to have this opportunity to share with you with our views. We really haven't begun work so much on the work streams. I'll talk a little bit about our focus in the OCA, but give me a little bit of background why this is all important to SAIC as a systems integrator. SAIC is one of the premier Fortune 500 technology integrators here in the United States, offering high-end solutions in engineering, IT modernization, mission solutions across the board. And of course, an important part of that is ensuring cybersecurity for our federal government and other customers. And so what you see on the screen is just kind of a stylized view of the full spectrum that we deal with from a cybersecurity standpoint. You might say it looks familiar to the a NIST risk management framework, certainly borrowing from that concept. And so we're uniquely positioned then in our role as systems integrators to see the imperative and how this OCA contributes directly to our nation's security in cyberspace. We, all those benefits that Jason and Anshul had mentioned, as a systems integrator, we basically experience all of them, or the pain points that lead to why we go here. Again, we experience all of them. Because it requires the entire community to work together to achieve better results, not just in the private space, but in public space as well. Some of the hurdles we've been experiencing to implementing effective cybersecurity solutions, some have been touched on here. They arise from disparate technologies and vernaculars employed by stakeholders, both private and public, in the cyber domain. We spend a lot more time just talking about how we classify entities and actions, the nouns and the verbs, as opposed to just getting started with working to solve those real problems created by the malicious actors in the domain. We also spend a lot of time tailoring and customizing each integration of security platforms and environments. We feel that pain. We'll come into customer spaces and we're endowed with a spaghetti bowl and said, here, go kind of fix all of this for us. And of course, that's going to lead to higher costs to develop and field solutions, which of course we have to pass on to customers, and delays, and critically delays in sharing vital information across the domain and between our customers and stakeholders. So it's not just the implementation piece, but it's the operational piece too. We see all those pain points, and we see the decreased speed or the lack of speed, if you will, that we're experiencing. We really need to respond to malicious actions in cyberspace in real time. So we're excited to be part of the OCA community. We feel this work can overcome these hurdles in several ways. Of course, increasing our options of vendors, the pieces we're going to plug and play in our systems integration role, so we can focus more on the required features and benefits of their tools and the solutions that we need, or addressing the problems, as opposed to worrying about the best options based on vendor lock-in, things like that. It's also going to reduce the timeline and complexity of architecting and developing our cyber solutions. Of course, that's important because less complexity reduces the amount of staff required to be skilled in several different conversant technologies. and how to integrate them with disparate tools, allows us to stay abreast of emerging threats. So we're, not deploying something that's, tailorized for some long past threat vector, leads to reduced costs for solutions, all those together. And also reduces timelines for sharing threat information in real time, responding in developing response options in complex environments. Sometimes the right response is adjusting a firewall, sometimes load balancing, sometimes maybe just threat awareness. And so, in other words, standardization across the board allows us to get within what we call, as I mentioned, those former Air Force officers, get within the turn radius of our adversary. In cyberspace, there's no early warning radars, so a lot of times you're going to be under attack until it's already happened. So now it's a catch-up game, and as quickly as we can catch up to the adversary in cyberspace, the better, and try and get ahead of them. So ultimately, we want to do all these actions at machine speed, and of course, trying to do it at machine speed is requiring implementation of AI, and to do that across the enterprise requires all the data to be aligned with common standards. So all those goals that Jason mentioned, if we want to achieve AI to help with all those, the only way to do it is with the standardization that we're fostering. So in summary, we can get the community to work more effectively together, to react quicker and at lower costs. And I use that example of a shorter turn radius, and that's just a one-on-one fight. But of course, in cyberspace, we need to get everyone working together, especially on the defensive side. So it's more of a big dog fight. Everyone's got to get within the turn radius and those shorter turns. So we're excited to be part of OCA initiative. Look forward to sharing our future successes with others at OCA, and then potentially with other partners coming in. And so I encourage you to learn more about the efforts and get involved. What we're specifically focusing on at SAIC is two pieces. One, architecture definition. That's been a big project we've been working on, trying to figure out how all those pieces on the previous slides fit together, the flows of information that go back and forth. As a systems integrator, we are actually interested in every single one of those pieces, not just threat intel into the environment and a SOAR taking information and responding to it. As a system integrator, all of those components are key to us. So that's why we're focused on contributing to the architecture development. And of course, that's also going to help us understand the full picture on how SCAP participates, and we'll hear more about SCAP here coming up. And also another focus for us is helping to align with various efforts in interagency and other efforts that might affect OCA's work or be affected by OCA's work. At SAIC, we're uniquely positioned based on our experience and our customer base and our network to try to make sure this effort here is best aligned with other efforts, maybe by sponsored by DHS or by IACD or others, where we have touch points, and so we're happy to be able to contribute from that standpoint. And also another piece of that is aligning the Open DXL ontology with other ontology-related efforts in the domain. I'm personally involved in work being supported from some other DoD organizations in support of organizations like US Cyber Command and ontology work that's being done for those stakeholders. And so one of my personal goals is to try to help make sure we're aligned with those efforts and contributing across the board. So with that, I'll turn it over to Todd Mosley, who's going to talk mainly, I believe, about the endpoint work stream and the progress and the focus that they've been taking. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction, and also very happy to obviously be a part of the OCA team. And I'm going to take a quick minute to just kind of cover the work stream highlights as it relates to endpoint vulnerability. Right. Want to take a quick step and just kind of talk about one thing first, why it's so important today. We obviously know that the endpoint has been very important in the past, but now we're seeing it pose a very, very larger and more specialized risk. Why? Simply because the endpoint is the most common entry point. A couple of reasons because of that. Obviously, it poses the broadest, most vulnerable attack surface. Right, and privileges everywhere. So every endpoint has a privilege problem, and the user space has become just as dangerous, if not more dangerous now, than the administrative space. So we need to obviously be aware of this. Privilege itself is a special right, and in IT, of course, it can refer to any sort of authorization to do things as far as like bypass any sort of security restraints. These days, of course, as the world, as people, as users, as our admins, focusing on getting a handle of these things, especially the crisis that we find ourselves in now. Cyber criminals, as we're seeing, are taking an advantage of our desire for information. We're seeing all sorts of attacks leveraging new norm, remote employees. We've seen an influx of phishing campaigns covering various topics, mainly coronavirus, and as well as successfully exploiting a vulnerability in like VPN systems by deception, penetrating VoIP devices, and of course, employees that are using their corporate systems for non-corporate functions. So this is why, obviously, when we're talking about the work stream, it is more important than ever to collaborate with other security vendors and technologies and help our organizations secure endpoint vulnerabilities. Now, as a first step, as part of the work stream, and of course, assisting with the endpoint vulnerabilities, it was mentioned obviously that we need to understand a couple of things. We need to understand obviously what these security vulnerabilities are, which we just kind of covered, but also what are the operational impacts as it relates to the endpoint. We need to understand operational workflows. This is something that is not easily accomplished without understanding the right processes, understanding the right integrations, how to share the information. This is the main reason why more organizations in the past have not done things like be able to implement a least privilege, be able to understand new endpoint threats, be able to analyze that data. In order to accomplish this, it needs to be a trade-off, right? We need to obviously be able to work with the security teams and the operational teams. And clearly, we need to be able to understand what exactly the organizations need in order to actually fully secure and lock down the endpoint, as well as ensure that we're mitigating these vulnerabilities. And the last thing I'll kind of mention before I turn this over is very much so, as Jason mentioned, is very much so the active technical defense measures, right? We need to be able to start being more proactive as it relates to securing the endpoint, securing the remote workforce, securing our users, working with other security tools to be able to ensure that we're implementing the right defense measures.
Awesome. Thank you, Todd, for walking us through this work stream, and thank you, Forrest, for the previous work stream. There's so many exciting things that are happening from an OCA perspective. And just to get another perspective, let me invite Charles to share his perspective from the standpoint of a system integrator. So, Charles.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm here to talk about the SCAP v2 data collection prototype, which is OCA's newest project, and we're very excited to have that going on. Next slide, please. So for those who have not heard of it, the SCAP, which is the Security Content Automation Protocol, is a security standard suite to support automated enterprise security assessment. And that covers a number of use cases such as vulnerability management, configuration management, patch management, that sort of thing. SCAP itself is what I would term a super standard. It defines how other standards are supposed to work together in order to create this security automation solution. SCAP itself is a NIST standard, 800-126 special publication. The component standards, however, that SCAP references come from a wide range of places, and that's one of the powers of SCAP. It utilizes standards from a number of sources to try to create a combined solution that meets people's needs. SCAP has been around for a while. It was first published in 2006, and it remains a going concern. The latest update came out in February of 2018. Next slide, please. So that brings us to our current effort, and that is the SCAP v2 effort. That kicked off a couple of years ago. And it's an effort to do a more significant revision of the SCAP standards. So some of the key goals that we're trying to get in the SCAP v2 work are better support of continuous monitoring of enterprise assets rather than the point-in-time assessment that SCAP version 1 is primarily known for. Another key thing that we're trying to work on is getting tools to talk to each other, interoperable architectural elements within this data collection architecture. That should sound very familiar to OCA participants and those interested in that sort of work. So we're trying to get that architectural interoperability, not just data interoperability, which was the SCAP v1 focus. And then finally, we're also trying to expand the scope. So SCAP v1 was very much focused on traditional endpoints, laptops, servers, that sort of thing. And we're trying to ensure that SCAP v2 from the outset considers all sorts of assets that an enterprise may be using operationally. These include mobile assets, IoT assets, cloud assets, and be able to pull all that information into a unified understanding of their security posture and security risk. So it's these sorts of things, these expansions require more than just sort of data interoperability. They require an architecture, a interoperable components in order to achieve them. And that brings us to the work that we're doing in the data collection subteam within the SCAP community, and that is the data collection architecture. So next slide. So this slide shows a very high-level overview of the components. Not too much there, but the important thing to understand is that these are roles, not necessarily individual software pieces. We want to be able to actually support a wide range of different vendor decisions to merge or separate components. But the important thing is that we've got these interoperable interfaces between each of these elements here. And that allows us to compose and extend a data collection architecture that's capable of meeting a wide range of needs. Another key element of that is that these, at the very bottom of the screen, if you see the posture collection engine, these PCEs, these are not standardized elements by SCAP. They are, and that is intended to allow what people have already deployed, what vendors have already built, to integrate into the SCAP architecture system without forcing everyone to replace all of their old tools and vendors to completely recode their old products. We want to be as inclusive as possible to the wide range of solutions that people are already deploying. So that's the very high level goal of the architecture. If we go into the next slide, this just provides a little more detail as to each of those roles. The user application, that's basically the entry point into trying to invoke a data collection. We've got a repository for persistent storage, so you can get previous results without having to go back and ping all of your endpoints and get the information again if it hasn't changed. We've got collectors, which are interfaces to those custom data collection points, the posture collection engines, and manage that part of the collection. The posture collection engine, or PCE, that's what's actually pulling data from systems. It's not standardized in the architecture. We want to basically be able to utilize whatever tools are already out there. We've also got these posture collection extensions so that we can add collection capabilities, and then a manager, which sort of serves as the overall orchestrator for this capability, taking a request from the user application and figuring out which endpoints need to be assessed and what tools need to be used in order to do that. So allowing a general question to be asked by the user application and turn it into specific actions that answer the user application's question. And again, we want to be very flexible in how software actually implements these components. We're not dictating that, oh, you have to have a separate collector software application and a separate repository application. We want to support a wide range of ways to do this. The key thing is that we've got these standardized interfaces so we can plug in different pieces as we need. So if we go into the next slide, that brings us to the data collection architecture prototype. So within the SCAP community, which I mentioned is SCAP v2 community, which has been going on for about 2 years now, it's an open public community. There has been a group that has been focusing on the data collection, the architectural area. We've got a high-level draft standard, and now the next step is we want to test it out. We want to figure out, do some of the ideas work, and also we want to answer some of the open questions we have. We don't have all the details of this architecture decided yet. So the goal was, let's create a prototype. Will allow us to experiment with design choices and validate approaches that we identify on the whiteboard as good approaches. The other thing that does is, as we continue to flesh out the prototype, then eventually we're going to end up with an implementation that's going to become the SCAP v2 standard published by NIST. And that implementation can then serve as a reference implementation, which is especially important in this broad architectural standard because not all vendors are going to implement all pieces. So we need something that they can test their components of the architecture against. Having a fully fleshed out proof of concept implementation will allow them to test pieces of this without having to implement the entire architecture. So where are we right now? Currently, we've got a skeleton code built with dummy messages passing according to the intended message flows. We are iteratively implementing different pieces in more and more detail to test out the concepts, which then feed back into the SCAP community, the data collection subteam of the SCAP community, and they use it to revise the standards that they're working on. By bringing this to OCA, we're hoping that we're going to be able to get more eyes on the design and more hands on the code, get some more insight into what where are the ideas, the designs working, where are they not. We're very much hoping to get feedback on this. Nothing that we're putting together is written in stone at all. But we're also hoping to up-level, increase the awareness of SCAP and the work that we're doing there to the OCA community. Which brings me to my final slide, which is the SCAP v2 standardization effort. Again, SCAP itself is a NIST effort, and NIST has a frequently asked questions page and some other information specifically focused on SCAP v2. But we have a public SCAP community. It's got several subgroups, including the data collection subteam, which is the source of the high-level architecture design that we are implementing right now. People who are interested in providing feedback or learning more about SCAP, I encourage you to use these groups and look at these resources. And I also want to mention that next week, SCAP will be having a public workshop, and there's a registration information for that as well. So if you're interested in this, encourage you to get more information about SCAP. In the meantime, we're excited to have this project working in OCA and look forward to working with the OCA community. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Charles, for that overview and that background and the progress that we've been making. So this is so exciting to have this project as part of OCA, and we look forward to the great things that can be done on this project. So thank you for that. Okay, let's shift gears. So just want to do a quick update on how we started. So we started talking about the state of the industry. We talked about how OCA is working to address some of the challenges that the industry is facing today. We talked about Stick Shifter and OpenDXL ontology as the key projects that have been that we've been working on. We then talked about the work streams as part of the OpenDXL ontology, and then the SCAP project. So there's so many exciting things going on, but that's not it, right? There are more that's happening with Open Cybersecurity Alliance and things that we have on bike. So I'm gonna have Darren talk more through where we are headed and how we are going. So Darren, over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Anshul, and thanks everybody that spoke today as well. And hopefully for those that are on the webinar, that certainly piqued the interest either in some areas that we already have underway here at the OCA, or indeed sparked ideas for perhaps other projects that you might want to bring in to fall under the remit of the OCA itself. And I'll talk a little bit about the engagement model in just a second. But first of all, I wanted to recognize that not only as we approach our 1-year anniversary, have all of the projects got underway that we've evolved and iterated, and with Charles as well added in a third new project with the SCAP v2 prototype. But we've also put in a significant amount of effort in terms of increasing the membership of the OCA as well. So since launch just under a year ago, we've grown exponentially with the members of the OCA. And as you can see on the screen, it's a broad representation, not only of teams, consultants that are all bringing together a diverse set of ideas and, more importantly, a huge amount of expertise across many, many different domains. And that's been absolutely critical to the success and the speed at which we've been able to deliver the projects that we've been speaking about on the webinar today for the members. Okay, next slide, please, Anshul. So I mentioned about the recruitment, and you've also heard a lot about the projects that have been underway, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the future as well. But all of that gets under the umbrella of the principle of openness, collaboration, and continuing to leverage standards and technology where they exist, and build upon them in order to shape things for the new challenges of cybersecurity that we're dealing with. So you've heard about the 3 live projects, which is Stick Shifter, OpenDXL Ontology, and our newest, which is the SCAP v2 prototype. But it was also mentioned by Forrest as well, and this is definitely worth re-emphasizing, that there's also an architecture working group that's tying all of these things together. So for that true interoperability, so that we can deliver not only the tooling, but a reference architecture as well to help organizations and individuals and agencies best prepare themselves for the threat of the future. So the 3 live projects we have underway I've just spoken about. In terms of the future itself, coming out of that architecture working group has been the beginnings or the initial seeds of an asset definition project. Of course, being able to reference assets in a standardized way is a critical foundation for any security architecture to build upon. So we expect to see something coming out of that in very short order. There were 7 working groups that Jason's spoken about as we continue to strive and define the ontology. And the reason that we split into those working groups is to leverage the expertise that lives within all of those domains of not only OCA members, but also other contributors as well. And I'll talk about how to contribute if you're not a member in just a second. And then you can see here the third one is somewhat of a request as well to people on the webinar, the Insert Your Project Here project. So if you do have any ideas or a project that you're working on that you think would have a natural fit and align with the philosophies and goals of the Open Cybersecurity Alliance, please do reach out to us and we'd be happy to engage in a dialogue and see how best we can help and leverage any ideas or existing projects that are out there. Okay, Anshul, if you wouldn't mind advancing, please. Thank you. So what are the benefits of the Open Cybersecurity Alliance? And really, this is the why should you care slide. And we've attempted to answer it for 3 different groups. The first for organizations. So why should you as an organization be interested in the work of the OCA? Well, really, this brings a whole plethora of benefits, and we've listed 3 here. But essentially, we're attempting to optimize the use of the existing tooling and information that lives in your environment today. So by being able to share information in an automated and very quick fashion amongst the different toolings will lead to much more insight and deep understanding of the security posture within your environment. And it may mean that you actually already have the tools in order to do the job that you need to do. So not necessarily going out and needing to procure a new tool every time that there is a new flavor or new slant on cybersecurity, but perhaps you already have that information that you can already exist. And then finally, it helps to reduce the vendor lock-in, not only in terms of having to buy from a single vendor, but also limits the need to also buy from that partner ecosystem. If all of the products across the whole plethora of cybersecurity are able to talk to one another, then there's no need to put all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak, and choose a single vendor for all of your needs. It actually gives you infinite flexibility to design a solution that best meets your environment. For security vendors themselves, there's a lot of clear benefits with the commonality of the tooling that we are providing as part of the OCA. But one of the principal ones is reducing the expense when it comes to integration. So one of the mantras of the OCA is to integrate once and reuse everywhere. So once you are able to exchange data utilizing the tooling that we are providing, any other vendor or organization that also adheres to that capability, you're automatically going to be able to integrate with. So it reduces the need for you to choose which handful of security vendors you want to forge a partnership with and put development resources into those integrations. It actually broadens out that spectrum of available capabilities for you. And it allows you to focus on the robustness of the data integrations to the high value use cases in order to best service your customers, rather than spreading your engineering teams too thin by needing to integrate in proprietary ways to many, many different vendors. And then from an individual standpoint, and this is something important to bring out here, is that you don't necessarily need your organization to be a member of the Open Cybersecurity Alliance for you to contribute. The way that the Open project is structured means that we have a series of breakout technical steering committee groups, and that is where individuals can contribute without necessarily needing your parent organization to be a membership, or maybe you are truly an individual and you don't work for an organization and you want to be part of this. So if there is an interest area or an interest group, please do reach out to us, and I'll give you those details in just a second, and join one of the technical steering committees of your area of interest, and begin to contribute and help define a standard, help improve security overall, and indeed leave a legacy for yourself, knowing that you have contributed to something that has made a difference in the world. So next slide, please, Anshul. Thank you. So at the same time that the OCA was being birthed just over a year ago, so was my son, and we managed to kit him out in some OCA gear. But really, this is just a message to say that everybody is welcome to participate. You've heard words like collaboration a lot, inclusiveness a lot. That is truly what the OCA is all about. So whether you are an individual that wants to make technical contributions by checking out the repositories on GitHub, or you're an organization that would like to join as a sponsor and have a seat on the OCA project governance board, then of course everybody is welcome. The best resource to go to is our website, which is the opencybersecurityalliance.org, and there you will find additional contact details for various areas of interest. And also you'll find links to our Slack channel to get involved with and begin the dialogue with us. So with that, I wanted to thank everybody for their time in listening to this webinar. I believe, Anshul, that we do have a little bit of time to answer any questions that may have come in while we've been speaking.
Absolutely, absolutely. And before we get to the question, just thank you to all the speakers for walking through this. And then you mentioned the website. I'm really excited to announce that we've been working on a website refresh to make it more user-friendly, have all the content out there for the community to leverage, and we've been successful. And as of yesterday, we made the new website live. So if you haven't checked out opencybersecurityalliance.org, do check it out. You'll find some fresh and engaging content out there. So with that, let me turn it over to Dee for question and answers, and she can provide the guidance on how to ask questions. So Dee, over to you.
Terrific. Great job, presenters. It has been such a productive year. The recent contribution of SCAP v2 is such a powerful addition. So thanks again, you guys did a great job. So let's start with, we've got a variety of questions here, and here's the first one. If I have a project idea that I would like to contribute, how do I go about doing that? Jason, you want to take a pass at that?
Sure, I'll take a pass at that. So the best way, if you have a project that you believe aligns with the goals the goals of the OCA, and again, those are interoperability, improving insights, unifying cybersecurity posture. Feel free to get in touch with us. There's a number of different resources. We actually have the slide up here on the screen right now. So we actually have a public Slack instance for the OCA. It's very easy to join. The link is on our website, you can just go there and feel free to send us a message, myself, Darren, or anyone in the project governing board. Another way you can get in touch with us is there's a number of public mailing lists. We don't have those all outlined here on the slide, but you can find those on the website. We would be more than happy to engage with the community. So if you have ideas or have already existing projects and you're looking to bring more governance to that project as well as more visibility, let us know.
Great. Anyone else? I think you did a great job, Jason. Okay, so this one's a little bit cynical, but I always think it's good to answer these questions head on. So what's the difference between OCA and other similar efforts?
Did you want to take that one, Darren?
Sure. Yeah, I'll happily address that one. So I think first of all, I would say that we are trying to build upon existing standards and technologies where they exist, rather than being a replacement for any of those. And the home we found under OASIS really allows us to drive forward these projects at speed. Now, at some point, we may decide if the member organizations agree that we might want to pursue formal standardization of the tooling that we're developing. But the real goal for this organization is speed and getting out that tooling into the industry just as fast as we can, without necessarily needing to go through all of the lengthy standards definitions and things like that, as well as being inclusive to everybody to be able to contribute. Everything is done in the open. If you go to the website, you'll see the various GitHub repositories for all of the projects that we have. So everything is documented. And I think given we approach our 1-year birthday with the speed and the volume of projects that we've been able to take on and drive forward, hopefully the proof has been out there for people to see that we were serious when we launched about how quick we were going to evolve and make all of these toolings and capabilities available to the industry.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, let's see. There are several interesting questions. Again, I'm not sure I'm going to get to all of them. If we don't, we will answer them in a follow-up email with a link to the recorded version of the presentation. Here's an interesting question. How to secure 5G is a hot topic. Will OCA be involved?
I think that's a great question, and that probably means that this webinar has been somewhat of a success in terms of somebody already thinking about projects that we would want to be involved in. So whomever asked that question, I would encourage you to engage with us, and we can certainly take a look and see perhaps even some of the areas that we are already working on may dovetail very nicely into something like securing 5G infrastructures. We have been focused a lot on commonality and being able to communicate in a standard way, but I also mentioned that we have also a architecture working group as well. So in terms of reference architecture in burgeoning, industries like the one that's just been mentioned, I think it's definitely worthy of a dialogue to see if there is a home for it here.
Yeah, Darren, I just wrote that down to considering 5G considerations in the architecture group. So we're thinking along, as I was writing it, you were just saying that. So we're thinking along the same lines there.
Perfect.
Okay, how about what if I work for a company of an existing member that is considered a competitor? Would my company be prevented from joining the OCA by existing members? Love that question.
Yeah, Jason, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely not. In fact, if you take a look at the existing membership of the OCA, there's a variety of companies who would be considered competitors to each other. I personally like the term, co-opetition, especially in the cybersecurity industry. We've all used this expression before. Cybersecurity is a team sport. There's no one vendor who has an overarching view of the entire cybersecurity marketplace. As Anshul led into this webinar with, when we visit clients, it's routine to see dozens, if not more than multiple dozens, of different vendors at play in any one client. There's no danger of that I believe of any one vendor coming and owning the entire cybersecurity landscape and marketplace. So, we welcome the co-opetition, as it were. We're not here to lock out vendors or to pursue any single point of view. In fact, the governance structure of an OASIS Open project gives every single member, every single sponsor of the OCA an equal vote and an equal say in how the organization proceeds. So it's structured very much in a way to prevent any one vendor from taking control of it. Darren, did you have comments there just as we wrap?
I'd like to jump in.
No, I think you've answered it perfectly. I think the only thing that I would add to that is again that the governance and the home that we have under OASIS would prevent any of that behavior of rival organizations being excluded or anything like that. It is in fact the opposite, that anybody is welcome and able to join.
Yeah. I think Forrest had a comment.
Yeah, if I may, bottom line is business models have to change to the scenario that Jason just described. In order to increase partnering options, reduce risk to customers, our customers, federal government is a great example. They write it in the contract, have to be based on open standards wherever possible. They're looking for that as a top feature of our solutioning. They need to reduce their risk, they need to reduce lock-in. So, everybody in the team, it's not just a national security perspective anymore of cooperating for national security, it's cooperating for, improving your bottom line. And so that's the focus you need to go at. So building your features to, have the components of your capabilities that have great features for analysis or response or whatever, but also have great features for interoperability and integration, because that is a requirement. So that's what needs to be in your strategies. So we're not looking at it from a competition standpoint in the integration piece. Competition needs to be on your features and benefits, internal, what you can bring in those areas. That's where you need to focus.
And just to add to that, JK, the other thing that I'd like to bring up is this is probably something that we can learn from our adversaries as well, right? Folks who are trying to get in, right? They're collaborating, we see them using one kind of attack, and then the source code is made available for the others to leverage and work through it. So I think this is an opportunity for us as an industry to get together, to fix, to essentially learn something from the bad guys, and then collaborate with each other. So I think this is a great platform where we can all work together and help in securing the clients. So yeah,
all work together to get within the turn radius of the bad guy. Sorry, I got thrown that Air Force analogy there.
There you go. And we are at the top of the hour, and what a powerful way to end our webinar. Thanks again, presenters. You did a fantastic job, and thanks to all the attendees. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.